So let's do these lines. We're going to extrude them as curves again. Okay, so same command. Surface, extrude curve, straight, and I'm going to select the curves on the x-axis now, like that. And if you remember, we have to figure out the direction, and we can do that by clicking on this and doing that. And remember that we're making a 1-inch height on all of these, so that it's going to be flush with the ones we already made. So I have my default set to 1, but you might not have that default, so all you do is press 1, hit enter, and if you look at the perspective view, we've got a grid of surfaces, right? And they're all flush. So our next step is going to be giving them depth. We want to make them the exact depth of the material we're using, which is plywood. When I measured the plywood that I bought, I got 0.135 inches. And you should double check when you buy the plywood. It may not be exactly the same thickness, but you need to know the exact thickness to make everything fit really well. So now what we're going to do is extrude the surface. Okay, so that command is now under the solid menu. So basically we're going to extrude the surface straight. And it's very similar to extruding the curves. You have to set the dimensions and you have to set the direction. So what I did was I grouped all of the Y axis pieces except for the last one, and I'll explain why in a second. So if we go back to that command, we've got solid, extrude, surface, straight, and now it's saying, okay, what surfaces do you want to extrude? And if I select that, you'll notice I left out the last one. I'll explain that in a second. And I'm going to select that, and then now we need to, as we did before, we have to figure out the depth and the direction, right? And the depth that we want to extrude, remember, is the material thickness of the plywood that we're going to cut in the end. Okay, so let's go again with direction. And in this case, the direction is going to go this way. And then again, the default here is 0.135. You may have that thickness of material you're working with, or you may have a different thickness, but here's where you have to type it in. Okay, and what you see is now we've got depth. Each of these pieces is the same thickness as a piece of plywood. So the reason why I didn't select the last one is because that last one, if it extends out 1/4 of an inch or whatever the thickness is, then I no longer have a 12-inch piece, right? It would be 12 1/4. And then, so what I'm going to do, I won't show you this, but basically you'd go through the same step, but you'd move the direction going inward. And then also, same thing with this piece, this will go inward. And that, now at this point, we've got basically a waffle. It's the same dimensions as the plywood we're going to be using. So if you go through and do the same process on this axis, you're going to end up with a piece that looks like this. And then the next step we're going to go through is we're going to figure out how to cut out the pieces to make this an interlocking 3-dimensional jigsaw puzzle.